Cherokee is another very interesting illustration of the power of writing, because no Native American language had a writing system. And it was assumed that it just couldn't be done. Starting in the early years of the 19th century, a man called Sequoyah decided that he had noticed how the whites were able to communicate over distance with each other by making marks. And most Native Americans assumed that this was some kind of witchcraft, or it was something that was sort of beyond their ken. He decided he would give it a go, and he spent years creating symbols and signs for not exactly letters, but syllables. Each of these stands for a consonant-vowel combination, like ga or ta. And it was such a remarkable achievement. He is the first person we know who went from being illiterate to literate by creating a writing system. And what's more, once the Cherokee had got over the shock of this, in fact, at first he was actually put on trial to make sure this wasn't some other kind of witchcraft that he'd invented, they embraced this so rapidly that within about a decade, 90% of the Cherokee were literate. In fact, the literacy rate among the Cherokee was probably higher than it was among the whites in those same given regions. Unfortunately, no sooner had this happened, and in fact a white missionary had created a type-based form of the language. This is not the original cursive. This is one that, as you can probably tell, looks much more like metal type. He had done this so he could print Bibles and hymnals and prayer books in Cherokee, and also a newspaper which was called the Cherokee Phoenix that was in English and Cherokee. No sooner had that happened when the first resettlements, or as we now call them, ethnic cleansing, began taking place. The Cherokee were driven out, the printing press was burned down, the type was stamped into the ground. The Cherokee, many of them wound up in Oklahoma, and they became really a sort of a dispossessed people in many, many ways. Now there are efforts to rebuild the language, which is a very interesting process in itself, because in a sense they're having to learn it all backwards. They have these texts that were printed, and they can sort of learn their own language backwards from that. But this is actually extraordinarily hard to write because of all of these type-based qualities, these serifs, the little notches at the end. I asked one of the Cherokee teachers to write these two sentences out, thinking that there must be a cursive version, a handwritten version of this. And what he wrote out was an exact copy of this, and it took him 14 minutes. So clearly you can't have a language that takes 14 minutes to write two sentences. So one of the other things that's happening is a kind of a rediscovery of a handwritten or cursive form of Cherokee. And all that's taking place right now, so it's a very exciting time.